Welcome to EdTech Monday Uganda, that's brought to you by the Mastercard Foundation in partnership with the Innovation Village through the EdTech Lab. EdTech Monday Uganda is a platform to engage Uganda's EdTech community and other relevant stakeholders, including government, private sector donors, on the emerging topics of education and how technology can address those challenges. EdTech Monday is held once every month, and we dissect the education sector, the future of education, and the available opportunities to grow that sector. In this episode, we shall discuss the access to digital resources, answering questions like how do we get to use the lessons from the remote learning during COVID-19 to reach all the in and out of school learners and increase access to skills? Why do developing countries have broken education management information systems, and what can we do to fix them? Joining me in the studio for this conversation are expert panelists Daniel Mugenga, the co-director at Lesson, Alan Semakula, the enterprise director at Airtel Uganda, and Moses Wamanga, the national chair of Kawa Uganda. I want to start with Daniel Mugenga. Daniel, I wanted us to first talk about what is your perception of the digital resources that are available for learners on the Ugandan cyberspace?
Okay, you look at access to internet, the penetration has been actually given a mandate to the Ministry of ICT, for example, who have the mandate to make sure all the citizens have access to the internet. But also the Ministry of Education has a very good national ICT policy, actually, which talks about in the strategic plan, which I reviewed not too long ago. So my question is, are these two organizations or these various bodies, are they communicating? So I see that there could probably be an independence in each of them, but I believe if they collaborated, there will be much more access to digital learning resources for everybody in this country. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that submission. Mr. Moses Wamanga, if we could come to you. You've been teaching in the education system for a long period of time, and now with the COVID-19 pandemic, it's presented us new challenges. What is your perception of the way education has been changed by COVID-19, particularly around the fact that it has to move towards technology?
Yeah, thank you, Raymond. I think it is a period of many challenges, but it is also a period of opportunities. So it is up to the teachers, the education ministries, the leaders at every level to see really how we can take advantage of the tools which are available to ensure that there is continued learning, teaching and learning. So right now, as far as Uganda is concerned, there is a lot of content online. We have, of course, the infrastructure in place, although there are challenges, but at least we can see that all over the country, there is network signal.
Thank you so much. I know when you mentioned internet, Alan must have flinched a little. Alan, speak to us about the kinds of investment that you're making at Airtel Uganda to be able to accommodate learners on the internet and the capacity that they need, particularly in internet speeds and even accessibility to be able to access learning resources.
Yeah, thanks. So as part of the investments that we've made at Airtel, I mean, you start with the technological infrastructure that basically delivers the internet through your device. And these are largely what you'd call base stations or sites. So we've invested in more than 2,000 sites in Uganda. And I think I can tell you we cover, in terms of connectivity over landmass, well over 90% of the landmass in Uganda. You've got 4G coverage, very, very good speeds in the remotest of areas in Uganda. I mean, even if you go to places like Karamoja, go to Kisoro, you've got internet coverage on 4G LTE fast connection to the internet today. So that's part of the investment that we've done. But we've not just stopped there. We've also laid quite a sizable distance in terms of fiber that we've laid on the ground to support this backbone infrastructure. And today we've got a lot of connectivity that we're working jointly with our industry regulator, the UCC, to provide connectivity to some of the government schools.
Thank you so much, Alan, for that. I now want to get back to Daniel, and I want us to speak about the disparities in education, which is a very political matter. You have areas in Uganda where access to the internet is still very low, but equally access to the platforms on which the internet would work is also still very low. And majority of it is because of poverty. Majority of it is also because the regions are not actually developed. And we see this particularly in the outcome of the results that we get from UNEB, for example. How do we address these disparities in this COVID-19 pandemic?
Thank you. Just to go back to a gentleman from Airtel, spoke very well about connectivity. But one of the biggest challenges we have faced as a platform called The Lesson is the cost of internet. For example, much as we've brought our cost of accessing the platform down to just less than the price of a Rolex, the connection is what increases the costs. So we've tried to actually lobby your particular company and others, but we're not finding much cooperation. So there's a disparity, there's no much support from the providers of this service with those who are providing the content. So if we can actually have a partnership, or I'm glad you're here so we can maybe continue the conversation, but connectivity, yes, but affordability is one of the challenges. Now you speak about the disparity. I believe we have very good policies in this country, but my issue would come with the implementation strategy. How? If you look at our neighbor in Kenya, the Minister of ICT in that country is the former head of Google Africa. If you look at his profile, it says technology enthusiast. Look at our neighbor in Rwanda. She's actually has a master's degree from the MIT, one of the best IT schools in the world, and the former head as well of the ICT Innovation City. And if you look at her profile, it says IT enthusiast. Now come to our country, you look at our current minister, I look at his profile, he's actually a medical doctor. And his profile says he's a specialist in public health. Now, somebody in that capacity may not understand the issues of the nitty-gritty of the IT, what organizations like mine that are trying to provide affordable access to children all over the country may not be able to understand that. So I believe if we had the right implementation strategy, but also the supervisors of this strategy should actually be able to defend some of these policies that are trying to disrupt the penetration or the improvement of access to internet and affordable education.
Thank you so much. I want to bring Moses. Yeah, I want to bring Moses into this conversation. Moses, you have a lot of work that you're doing with Kawa Uganda in terms of putting together literary resources that young people can use on the internet to learn. I want to ask you, from your own assessment, particularly learning online, are young people actually learning from these literary resources that are being dumped on the internet? How do you measure that these young people are learning in the first place?
Thank you so much, Mr. Mujuni. Actually, it's not just like dumping on the internet. No. There is a lot of teaching going on, and there is also learning going on. I can tell you that there are organizations. Let me take the example of Kawa Uganda. We are working in collaboration with the National Curriculum Development Center. We signed an MOU to produce culturally relevant content, the content which a learner can use, and they can see that there is a change in the academic performance. So I think the challenge is basically on capacity of the parent knowing that this kind of content, maybe let my child use my smartphone and access this kind of content. So right now I can see that different organizations are carrying out Zoom meetings. For example, under ASHU, Association of Secondary School Head Teachers of Uganda, the organization we partner with, we have held a series of Zoom meetings. And we have guided school leaders to know where there are right platforms, the platforms which have Ugandan content which is based on the curriculum.
Let me close out with Alan. Alan, you're doing a lot of impressive work in making sure that the internet is affordable and accessible to young learners across Uganda. But the question that has been raised, and even Daniel talked about it, is that of disparities. There are areas where, for example, the only connectivity is a 3G network. There are areas where connectivity is still so low and people are unable to access network connectivity there, and yet there are learners who need to access the same material as learners in the city. Do you look at this as a problem at Airtel Uganda, and how are you trying to solve it?
Yeah, I think in terms of, the network coverage, we've done our part and continue to do our part in improving the connectivity across the country. As I told you, today we've got more than 2,000 sites. All our sites today are 2G, 3G, and 4G enabled sites. Okay, so the connectivity in terms of fast, reliable, affordable internet reach, I think we've by and large done a very good job. But I think there's a slightly different twist, right? So I think, it's one thing to have the internet readily available, but you need to have a device that can actually connect you to the internet to get that value, right? So today when I look at the education sector, and I've done a bit of a deep dive into, the government schools, okay? I mean, in terms of the schools that we have today, right? And this is across all levels, excluding the nursery schools, right? But from primary level all the way to higher institutions of learning, we have about 12,400 government institutions today, right? When you look at number of students, I would estimate it anywhere between 11 to 12 million students, the bulk of them being primary, and those are really remote, and in most cases you find, access to devices is usually an issue, okay? I think from a thought perspective, I think there's opportunity to either tackle it as a private sector jointly with government, because, if we're going to put handsets in the hands of every single student, the investment is quite a lot, right? But I do believe there is a way that the private sector and the Ministry of Education today can come up with a way of getting these devices into every single hand of every student across the country. Then we start harnessing the power of the internet.
Thank you so much, Alan. We're going to take now a very short break, but when we get back, we continue the conversation on access to digital resources for young learners and how that can be accelerated during this COVID-19 pandemic.